Welcome to Conspiracist.
Great to be here.
Today we're tackling a really controversial and fascinating hypothesis. The idea that governments might be intentionally concealing alien abduction recovery programs.
Yes, it's a claim you hear in certain circles, definitely.
We've gathered a range of sources, different accounts and analyses to try and, explore the experiences reported around this.
And the goal, as always, is to evaluate the evidence and the reasoning objectively.
Exactly. Keeping it strictly professional, no dismissiveness, just looking at what's presented.
A good place to start, I think, is with the people who believe they've had these experiences. There's often a real reluctance to talk about it.
Why is that, typically?
Well, the sources suggest it's less about doubting their own experience and more about a very understandable fear. Fear of ridicule, of stigma.
Right. Being labeled, essentially.
Precisely. So coming forward takes a lot, which makes the accounts we do have quite significant to study.
That makes sense. So for those accounts that do surface, are there common patterns, recurring themes in these alleged abduction narratives?
There are. And one very prominent connection researchers point to is sleep paralysis.
Sleep paralysis. Okay, maybe we should define that first.
Sure. Basically, it's a temporary state where you become conscious, mentally aware, but your body is still in that muscle atonia phase of REM sleep. You can't move.
So mind awake, body asleep.
Pretty much. It can happen when you're falling asleep that's hypnagogic or when you're waking up hypnopompic.
Just that immobility sounds frightening on its own. And there are other sensations too, right?
Oh, yes. Often accompanied by really vivid hallucinations. They could be visual, auditory, even tactile. And intense fear is very common.
What kind of things do people report seeing or feeling?
Well, besides the immobility, you get these dreamlike hallucinations breaking into wakefulness. A feeling of pressure, often on the chest.
Difficulty breathing, I imagine.
That too. Sensations of floating or flying or falling. And critically for this topic, often a sensed presence.
A presence, like someone else is there.
Yes, often described as menacing or threatening. It's a really core part of many sleep paralysis experiences.
Like a waking nightmare bleeding into your bedroom. One source mentioned it's actually not that uncommon.
Not at all. Estimates vary, but something like 30% of people might experience it at least once. And of those, maybe 5% report the really vivid hallucinations.
So a significant minority have had these potentially terrifying experiences.
Exactly. And the overlap in symptoms with elements of abduction stories, the paralysis, the strange figures, the fear, the floating, it definitely raises questions.
It does. Another thing that struck me was the physiological reaction. The sources compared it to trauma survivors.
Yes, that's a powerful finding.
Yeah.
Individuals reporting these alien abduction experiences, or AAEs, can show physiological reactivity, heart rate, skin conductance as profound as survivors of combat or sexual assault.
Wow. So whether the source is external or internal, the impact is like real trauma.
It suggests the brain processes these memories, these experiences, with that level of emotional weight. And it highlights how difficult it can be for the person to differentiate, a vivid hallucination from an external event.
Leading to real suffering.
Absolutely. And one source even noted a terribly high rate of suicide attempts, 57% among sleep paralysis patients who also report AAEs. It underscores the depth of the distress involved.
That's sobering. It really emphasizes the need for understanding, regardless of the explanation. Okay, so let's look at the abduction narrative itself. Is there a typical sequence people describe?
There often is a kind of standard progression reported, yes.
Yeah.
It frequently starts with paralysis, often in bed, like we discussed with sleep paralysis.
Okay.
Then maybe a bright light, the appearance of humanoid figures.
Figures, right. Not always described the same way, I gather.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But figures appear. Then the person reports being moved. Levitated sometimes.
Moved? How?
Sometimes feeling like they're floating, sometimes feeling pulled. Occasionally even reports of moving through solid objects like walls or windows.
Through walls.
Okay.
And then where?
Into what they perceive as some kind of craft, an alien ship.
Right. And inside the craft.
That's where descriptions of examinations often come in, sometimes involving instruments, probes.
Probes. Are these like medical procedures?
Sometimes described that way, maybe analogous to gynecological or urological exams, but often with strange, non-terrestrial feeling aspects. Communication with the beings is also common.
What kind of communication?
Often described as telepathic rather than verbal. And another key element is missing time.
Missing time, meaning?
A gap in their conscious memory. They might remember being taken, remember being returned, but have hours unaccounted for in between.
And how do these memories surface? Are they always clear?
Not always immediately. Sometimes they emerge later, perhaps through recurring nightmares, or sometimes during hypnosis sessions aimed at recovery.
Hypnosis. We should probably circle back to that later.
Definitely. It's a complex part of the picture.
Okay, you mentioned the humanoid figures earlier. Are the descriptions consistent? Is it always the same type of being?
There's variation, but certain archetypes appear frequently. The most famous are probably the Greys.
The Greys. Everyone sort of knows that image, right?
Exactly. Small stature, large bald head, grayish or white skin, and those very large black, almond-shaped eyes. Almost insect-like to some.
Any other common types?
Yes, another group often mentioned are the Nordics.
Nordics. How are they described?
Much more human-like.
Yeah.
Tall, often fair-haired, attractive features, sometimes perceived as more benevolent or intellectually or morally superior.
Interesting. So quite a contrast to the Greys.
A significant contrast. And then there are other reports, sometimes reptilian beings, insectoids, energy beings.
Yeah.
But Greys and Nordics are probably the most commonly cited in Western accounts.
Got it. And the procedures you mentioned, the examinations, the probes, can you elaborate a bit more on what people report?
Well, the examinations are often described as clinical, cold, the probes. Sometimes descriptions sound invasive, potentially related to reproductive functions.
Like gynecological or urological, as you said.
Yes, but often missing familiar elements, like not seeing standard medical equipment or the beings not seeming to follow procedures you'd expect. There are also recurring claims about the removal of biological materials,
Such as?
sperm or ova. And connected to this, sometimes encounters with beings described as human-alien hybrids.
Hybrids. Wow. Any other types of procedures mentioned?
Some accounts include what sound like neurological procedures, maybe involving needles or implants.
Okay. This all sounds pretty unsettling, often traumatic. Yet, I read that some people report positive aspects.
That's true, and perhaps surprising. Some surveys indicate a large percentage, maybe even up to 88% in one, report some positive elements alongside the fear or trauma.
What kind of positive elements?
Things like feeling special or chosen, a sense of importance, or gaining new knowledge or awareness.
Like a spiritual awakening, almost.
For some, it seems to take on that quality. Or a feeling that they're now a bridge, facilitating communication between humans and extraterrestrials. Some even report perceived improvements in skills, like math abilities or something similar.
That adds another layer of complexity, doesn't it? It's not just universally negative.
Not universally, no. The experience seems very multifaceted for many who report it.
Okay, this paints a picture of the reported experiences. Now, let's pivot to the potential explanations beyond the literal extraterrestrial one. We already touched on sleep paralysis.
Right, and it really does offer a compelling framework for several key parts of the narrative.
Which parts specifically?
Well, the paralysis itself, obviously. The feeling of being held down, unable to move. The hallucinations can explain the appearance of figures in the room.
The sensed presence, too.
Exactly. That feeling of not being alone, even a menacing presence, is a known feature of sleep paralysis episodes. The floating or flying sensations also align.
So the intrusion of REM sleep phenomena into a waking state could account for quite a bit of the initial experience.
It could explain the core sensations and perceptions for many reports, yes.
What about memory? You mentioned hypnosis earlier. How might false memories or suggestibility play a role?
That's a really crucial area. Memory is not like a video recording. It's reconstructive, and it's malleable.
Meaning it can be changed or influenced?
Yes. Research, like studies using the Diess-Roediger-McDermott or DRM paradigm, shows how easily false memories can be implanted just by presenting related words.
How does that work?
Basically, you give someone lists of related words like bed, rest, awake, dream, and they later falsely remember hearing the central, unpresented theme word like sleep. It shows how our minds fill in gaps and make associations.
I see. And hypnosis?
Hypnosis can increase suggestibility. While some use it hoping to recover lost abduction memories, it's not a reliable tool for verifying events. The suggestions made, even unintentionally by the therapist or the person's own expectations, can shape or even create memories that feel very real.
So memories retrieved under hypnosis need to be treated with extreme caution.
Very much so. They can reflect belief and suggestion as much as or even more than actual events.
Are there other psychological traits that seem more common in people who report these experiences?
Research has found correlations with certain traits. One is called absorption.
Absorption?
Yes, it's linked to things like fantasy proneness, having very vivid mental imagery, and also being more easily hypnotizable.
So people high in absorption might be more likely, interpret unusual experiences differently.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Someone prone to vivid imagery might experience the hallucinations during sleep paralysis with incredible intensity and realism. And they might be more inclined to interpret those ambiguous, frightening sensations through a pre-existing cultural narrative, like alien abduction.
Okay. And once someone starts to think they might have been abducted, does that belief itself influence things?
Absolutely. That brings in cognitive biases, especially confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias, seeking out evidence that supports what you already believe.
Exactly. You tend to notice and remember information that fits your hypothesis and ignore or downplay evidence that contradicts it. So if you suspect abduction, ambiguous experiences, or even just reading about other cases, might seem to confirm your belief, making it harder and harder to question.
It becomes a self-reinforcing loop.
It can, yes.
Could these narratives also be fulfilling some kind of deeper emotional or psychological need?
That's another perspective explored in the literature. For some, the abduction narrative might provide a powerful framework for making sense of confusing or difficult life events or feelings of alienation.
How so?
It can offer a sense of meaning, purpose, maybe a feeling of being special, chosen for something important, like participating in some grand cosmic drama ideas like physical salvation, hybridization for the betterment of humanity. These can be powerful myth-making elements.
Giving structure and significance to experiences that might otherwise feel chaotic or meaningless.
Precisely. It can provide an explanation, however extraordinary, where perhaps ordinary explanations feel insufficient.
Let's shift slightly to the broader context. What about sociocultural influences? Does culture shape these accounts?
Definitely. While proponents sometimes emphasize consistency across accounts, skeptics often point to variations across different cultures as evidence for a psychosocial origin. The details can shift depending on the cultural background.
And media. Science fiction must play a role.
Unquestionably. Sci-fi books, movies, TV shows. They've saturated our culture with images and ideas about aliens and spacecraft.
So these narratives might provide the vocabulary or imagery.
Yes, they can provide a ready-made script, almost. Especially when memories are being retrieved through suggestive techniques like hypnosis. The details recalled might unconsciously borrow from stories or images the person has absorbed from the media.
Like the Betty and Barney Hill case, which some argue resembled things seen in media before their hypnotic regression.
That's a classic example, often cited in that context, yes. The potential for media influence is significant.
What about the gray alien itself? Is that image a cultural product?
The dominance of the gray archetype really does suggest a strong cultural influence, especially in recent decades.
It wasn't always the primary type reported.
Early accounts, say pre-1960s, often featured more human-looking beings. The small, big-headed, large-eyed gray became much more prevalent later. Its features large head, implying intelligence, humanoid, but distinctly other, seem to resonate culturally.
It's become the alien icon.
Pretty much. And its spread likely owes a lot to media repetition.
Despite all this interest, you mentioned it's still kind of a taboo subject for mainstream science. Why is that?
Well, it's heavily associated with UFOs, which have historically faced ridicule within academia. Studying abduction claims seriously can risk a scientist's reputation, unfortunately.
Guilt by association, almost.
There's likely a fear of not being taken seriously, being seen as pursuing pseudoscience. It hinders objective investigation.
Which brings us to a really fundamental point. The physical evidence.
Yeah.
Or the lack thereof.
That remains the central challenge for the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Despite decades of claims, there's a striking absence of unambiguous, verifiable physical evidence.
No crashed ships, no undisputed alien artifacts, no biological proof that stands up to independent scrutiny.
Generally, no. While people report marks or scars or occasionally find unusual objects, these haven't provided conclusive proof of extraterrestrial intervention when examined scientifically. Ruling out mundane explanations or proving an alien origin is incredibly difficult.
So the experiences are subjectively very real for the individuals, but objective proof is missing.
That's the crux of the issue from a scientific standpoint. The accounts themselves are data, certainly. Data about human experience, belief, and psychology. But they haven't translated into physical proof of aliens visiting and abducting people.
Before we wrap up, maybe touch on one specific famous case. The Travis Walton incident often comes up.
Ah, yes. The logger in Arizona, 1975. Claimed abduction, missing for 5 days, returned with a dramatic story.
It became quite famous, even a movie, Fire in the Sky.
It did. It's one of the best-known cases. However, it's also attracted significant skepticism.
Why this skepticism?
Questions were raised about motivations, potential financial gain from the story, the timing coinciding with a logging contract deadline they were unlikely to meet. There were inconsistencies in accounts.
What about the polygraph tests? I heard they passed.
The results were mixed, actually. Walton reportedly passed one, but others involved apparently showed deception or had inconclusive results on initial tests. Polygraphs themselves aren't perfectly reliable either, so it remains a contested case, emblematic of the difficulties in verifying such claims.
Right. A compelling story, but questions remain.
As with many such cases.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. The reported experiences, the common themes, the psychological factors like sleep paralysis and memory, cultural influences.
Really is a complex picture. You have these deeply felt, often traumatic personal experiences on one hand.
And on the other, plausible alternative explanations rooted in psychology, neurology, and sociocultural factors.
Exactly. The consistency in some themes is intriguing, no doubt. But phenomena like sleep paralysis, combined with memories, quirks, and cultural scripts, offer a strong explanatory framework without needing to invoke extraterrestrials.
So, returning to our initial hypothesis, the idea of intentional government concealment of alien abduction recovery programs, where does that leave us?
Based on the evidence we've discussed, particularly the lack of verifiable physical proof for the abductions themselves, the idea of government concealment remains firmly in the realm of speculation.
There's no solid ground to confirm such programs exist.
Not based on the available verifiable data. The belief might exist among those who report experiences, fitting into a larger narrative, but it's a hypothesis without substantiation at this point.
It certainly underscores how powerful personal experience, belief systems, and our shared cultural stories are in shaping our understanding of the unexplained.
It absolutely does. The human element, our minds, our memories, our need for meaning, is central to this entire phenomenon.
A fascinating, complex, and deeply human puzzle. Thanks for listening to Conspiracist.